calling in saying, I only want a rate, I'm not giving you information? Like, what's the initial, instead of asking, well, what's your goal? What's a good way to kind of, in the beginning of the conversation, to kind of, take control?
Yeah, so you usually get the call transferred, or are you guys outbounding? Both? Okay, so it's obviously a different approach on both, and I'll go through both of them, okay, and then we'll call it a day. So say, hey, I got Daniel on the phone. He's one of our best. I took the time to say, thanks, Mary. Hey, Travis, thanks for holding. Why? Is because it makes it more personable. I'm paying attention to the details that my competitors are not, right? And this is how I took control of the conversation. The reason why Mary is transferring you to me is because I'm authorized to provide you with the information you need for your home in Orange County on Myford. Now, the information I'm going to cover with you is pretty important, so you may want to have a pen and paper handy, but before I begin, let me make sure I'm not wasting your time. I'm going to ask a few basic questions, and this is going to let me know if we should even move forward with our call. If I can, I'm going to show you exactly how I can help you. If not, I'm going to save you some time, point you in the right direction. Now, the property on Myford, that's how you take control of the call. It's like, oh, well, Daniel, the only way that I want to go forward is can you beat 3.5%? Yes, I sure can. But before I can confirm whether or not you can get there, I need to make sure of a few things first. All right, and that's it. Just keep going. Take back the conversation. The faster that you can ask the right questions to give you enough leverage to keep luring them in for the rest of the call, the better. Now, they're still going to hit you, oh, but I only want 3.5%. I only want no cost. I understand that, sir. I actually wrote that down, and that's the only information that I have so far. Because they're going to say, well, I'm in a hurry. Exactly. And that's why I want to make sure that the information I put in front of you is worth your valuable time. Make sense? It's like boxing. He's going to throw a punch, you got to fucking adapt to it. Make sense? Whereas most is throwing a punch and they're fucking taking it and they're hitting him back. Right? Like, well, you fucking called me. Like, what the fuck? But that's the emotional sport of sales, right? And that's why we need to do certain things like get lost in the gym, or get lost in some sort of influence, or come to meetings like this so you can grow to be stronger, right? In other words, when you're pitching your deals, and let's say you get them all throughout that process, you have to listen to certain things on the phone. Like if they're married, you have to ask the right questions, like who handles the finances in the house, because that person is the one who makes the decision, or they're going to have heavy influence on that decision. Make sense? And so you can figure these out by, again, with the property profile. One of the questions I always ask, and if you're not asking this, I would strongly recommend that you do, because this will create the leverage that you need to create the glue to make this guy stick with you. Okay. Besides the mortgage, what other debt do you have? Like, for example, revolving debt. How much in credit card debt? And then depending on their answer, the way they answer it, they'll say, I think I owe about $4,000 or $6,000. And let's say if you know they're married, you say, right, okay, do you handle the finances in the house? Then they'll say, yeah, actually me and my wife do. Say, okay, cool. And then how much do you send on this credit card? Because you're making note, right? Like, there's a wife. The wife handles the finance. That's the shit you're listening to. You're not necessarily listening to, what they want to do. You're kind of just more or less framing the call for your pitch. And so, let's say you find out there's $6,000 in credit card debt. I'm gonna say, how much a month do you pay? He'll say, and I've been through this thousands of times. They'll say, I think my wife sends. Then you now know who the finance holder is, and that's a very powerful person. Do not fucking pitch a thing unless this person's involved. Okay. Otherwise, you're gonna burn up your fucking time. Mr. Jones to now convey all this information that you're gonna give 110% to go present, and you're relying on him to present it to the fucking decision maker. Let it be you that presents it to the decision maker. Make sense? Now, the reason why that's important is because now you're looking for leverage to get away from interest rate. And that's why I'm a firm believer that we don't sell rate, we don't sell fees, we sell a fucking solution. Right? And that's all we're trying to find out is what can we solve for this person. It's not rate. And so by finding out in credit cards, let's say again $6,000, I say I think my wife sends about $300. I'm noting that down. I'm saying $6,000 credit card debt, $300. Okay, how much in car payments you have? Car payments about $600. $600. How much do you owe on that car? I owe about maybe 12 grand. Does this sound familiar? Do you guys, right? This is around the average debt. And then it's, oh, okay, cool, 12 grand. So now I have not 600 plus 300, that's $900 in liability, right? 6 plus 12, that's only 18 grand in debt. I know that if I give this guy a deferral, a payment deferral, and then also an escrow refund, he has chances of paying off that 6 grand in debt by itself. Does that make sense? Now I'm already saving this guy $300. This is how I look at it. But no other agent is paying attention to these other debts because we're just worried about the mortgage, right? We're worried about, oh, you got 3.5? Okay, never mind. We're completely missing out on the other fucking shit that plays a role. And so why I say that these questions are important is because they're going to give you friction, right? They're going to give you, oh, I don't want to pull my credit. Common fucking objection, right? And so you need this leverage to then go back on and say, oh yeah, no worries. To be honest with you, the reason why I asked all those questions is to make sure I can even go this far. If you want me to put something in writing, I do have to verify the credit because it's actually Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac that gives that issues that approval. I'm just a servicer. The only advantage that I can bring to you, and I love playing it down that way, I say the only advantage that I could bring you, and now I got their ear because they hear it, right? The only advantage I could bring to you is just giving you relevant information. Now, I can be like a lot of these companies that are calling you and just give you very vague info, but you can get that on a TV commercial. You can get that on the radio. If you want something more custom fit that's worth your time, that's the only thing I can do for you. Now, you did mention that you had $6,000 in credit card debt with $300. This is what allowed me to move forward, is because I think that I can not only help you reduce your monthly payment, but show you some options where it'll free up enough cash flow to build up your savings, which is another question besides the debt. I'll say, we have what's called a net, and people love learning about new shit, right? It's human nature, and they feel like they're getting inside information when you present it this way. A question where we have to figure out what's called your net. Net means your net income net out all of your expenses that's not even on your credit report. In other words, your daycare, your utilities, your groceries, everything. How much of that net income are you netting to carry you into next month? That make sense? And the reason why is because you're going to notice that a lot of times they don't have any money left to put in the bank. You're going to notice that in some cases they are actually relying on their credit card debt. And so all you're doing is funneling them into a direction where you can put them up against the wall. I don't mean to be mean or anything, but that's ultimately what we got to do, right? We got to be able to get that compliance. So to put them up against the wall, you got to be able to find out and expose the weakness so you can kind of leverage that. And so the net, meaning, after all your expenses are paid, what most of them will say is, oh, I got about $500. I got about $1,000. You can't take that for the answer. Again, you have to dig in and say, okay, cool. What do you do with that extra $500? They're going to say they put it in the bank. Great. Now you could talk about bank balances, because it's a very sensitive question, right? Like, how do you get there? Fucking, I'm a funnel towards it. Say, oh, I put $500 in the bank. Beautiful. What's the average balance of your checking and savings month to month? That's a very powerful question. But it's difficult to ask because it's a very sensitive question. You have to gauge the timing, right? And this is exactly how you open up that question. So that's gold right there. If you guys learn how to fucking master that, you will be a loan fucking machine. I fucking promise you. You will kill it. Okay? So if you find out, say your net, I'm taking about 500. Great. What do you do with that 500? Oh, I put it in the bank. Awesome. How much do you average in your checking and savings balance month to month? They're gonna say, oh, I got about $3,000, $4,000. With that $3,000 to $4,000 average balance, do you notice it growing, or are you pulling from it sometimes? Very fucking powerful question. If you guys please try to learn that and understand that, okay? Are you noticing it growing, or are you actually pulling from it? And what I'm trying to find out is, are they check to check? And most of them are. Just because of their title, just because of who they are, doesn't necessarily mean that they're better. So don't get discouraged. If anything, fucking raise up, right? Fucking you are who you are. You could be whoever the fuck you are on the phone.